Half day, everyone. Okay, let's get started. Thank you for participating in this track entitled Pivoting to Protect Our Homeless Heroes. As a reminder, we encourage you to share your questions and comments in the chat. So, while the COVID 19 pandemic presented a new set of challenges, it also necessitated opportunities to think outside the box and develop new approaches to maintain service delivery. Through these approaches, West Care Pacific Islands Supportive Services for Veteran Families, WPISSVF, was able to successfully pivot operations to be almost entirely remote. Everything from eligibility assessment, housing search, shelter or housing placement, and eventual program discharge has been done while barely or even sometimes never meeting a veteran face to face. This presentation will highlight three key factors that allowed WPISSVF to effectively negotiate the challenges of COVID 19, specifically its ability to adapt, to collaborate even more closely with the community, and to maintain an overall level stasis. This new reality may have been a shock, but the flexibility to meet the needs of the veteran family have been crucial in assuring what we never stopped protecting our homeless heroes. I now introduce today's presenters, Sonia Taijeron and Brandon Cobb.
So yeah, if everybody can see that, Sonia actually drew that background. So we want to use the first slide to kind of, I guess, act as almost an icebreaker. We want to know where everybody's coming from, which agency you represent, and what you do. So that way we kind of get a better idea of who we're communicating with and who we're communicating to. And yeah, everybody kind of gets a chance to get to know each other a little bit. Everybody's got some pretty cool jobs, man. Uh, yeah, what a diverse audience, and definitely really good to see that, this has attracted not just people who work with veterans, but also those who don't directly work with veterans. I think a lot of what we're going to talk about is pretty universal, I would say. And definitely, while our focus is veterans, I think a lot of our practices will definitely translate to other stuff. And hopefully you guys can kind of connect with where we're coming from.
All right. Half a day. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonia Taijeron, and with me today is my colleague, Brandon Cobb. We are veteran advocates with the Supportive Services for Veteran Families program with West Care Pacific Islands. I'm just going to give a brief overview of West Care and SSVF. So West Care Pacific Islands is a nonprofit organization. Our focus of all collective efforts is toward uplifting the human spirit in everything we do. WPI is committed to providing culturally competent and person-centered services to the most vulnerable populations in our community. WPI offers a broad array of programs that address gaps in services aligned with our mission. Reaching out to those most in need, WPI has targeted services that support the recovery and resiliency of individuals struggling with homelessness, substance use, mental illness, and adverse experiences. In addition to meeting the most critical needs in our community, WPI is committed to promoting prevention programs and strategies that aim to address a variety of challenges, such as substance use, teen pregnancy, and STI and HIV infections from the start, engendering an environment where positive outcomes can be realized. WPI moves with the spirit of Inafamalik, Chamorro word, of course, meaning to make good, guiding the work we do, bringing new resources to the island through funding, training, and community awareness. The Supportive Services for Veteran Families program, SSVF, helps veteran families obtain stable housing, whether they are currently homeless or on the verge of becoming homeless. Those who are homeless first receive assistance to find suitable housing. Then we veteran advocates work with the family to provide needed temporary financial assistance, linkage with community resources, and the US Department of VA Veteran Affairs resources, and assist the family in creating a plan to improve housing stability. Today, we will be sharing with you ways that we are pivoting to protect our homeless heroes.
I don't know how I followed that. That was really well written. Kind of shooting from the hip here, so we're gonna have a little different approach based on who's speaking. But but yeah, definitely what Sonia explained is what we do, right? So I would say um, we definitely have intensive case management with what we do, and that was really hard when we shifted when the pandemic happened and we shifted to telehealth. And really, when Sonia and I were talking about, kind of, we took this time to kind of recap the last year or year and some change about what we did and really how we survived and navigated and eventually, I would say, thrived during the pandemic. And we broke it down into really three keys. Those keys were the ability to adapt, to collaborate even more closely with our community partners, and gain more partners, and to maintain an overall level of stasis. So yeah, we'll get into these three keys, and there's definitely going to be more detail along the way, but that's kind of an overview of what we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Brandon, for saying that it was well written. I actually got that off our website, just so everyone knows. I didn't write it myself.
I'm the
So,
one that wrote
a
that.
tale, a tale of two realities. And so, as you can see on our slide, we have pre-COVID and today. So, I actually, Brandon and I are very unconventional in the ways we provide or present rather. So I actually wrote a little story for this section. It only seemed fitting as our title is A Tale of Two Realities. So, A Tale of Two Realities. Once upon a time in the year 2019, the SSVF program conducted all meetings and appointments face to face. As you walked through the hallway, you could smell the fresh coffee brewing. You know you're heading in the right direction. Jingle, jingle goes the bell hanging on our door. Then, ding, 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 ding goes the desk bell. You hear a half a day or hello from the distance. The veteran is signing in and then heads to the coffee pot. Our staff come out of the office to greet the veteran and see if they have signed in. The veteran advocate comes out to speak with the veteran. This was a typical day. Veterans would walk through the door, sign in, and be able to talk to other vets, use the computer, cool off, drink some water or coffee. If they were lucky, sometimes there were snacks. Veterans brought their families with them, and at times they came alone. Either way, they met with their veteran advocates. The stacks of documents exchanged hands. Signatures were affixed on documents as mandated, and as they left meetings, ended with smiles, anger, or frustration that you could see. Then came along the year 2020, and the world was struck with the pandemic. Lockdown. What? How would we help our homeless heroes? How do we keep them safe? How do we keep ourselves safe? As these questions filled our minds, we pivoted. With agility and shift of mindset, we found a way. Not able to meet face to face? No problem. Don't have access to a phone or computer? No problem. Need to stay at home because you're high risk? No problem. As a team, we worked together and adapted to teleworking, managing to continue services despite the barriers that COVID imposed. Arrangements for our veterans that were unfamiliar with today's technology were still able to drop documents at our office. At this point, we had to put trust in those seeking our services. Accepting verbal consents, declarations, and agreements became a pivot point. The ability for our veterans to submit documents via text, email, or in person became normal. As a team, we pivoted. Additional technical supports were provided to support this pivot. We are now in 2021 and we continue to provide services. We haven't missed a beat. SSVF has broadened its ability to provide services. What was initially seen as a setback may be the way to provide additional avenues for veterans to receive services. Despite the pandemic setbacks, we are grateful that it has opened our eyes to additional ways to provide services. Will it continue? Dun, dun, dun. Next.
So, so a more concise way to to summarize Sonia's story there is that we adapted to new to us ways of working, right? I know that definitely there are other programs and other agencies out there that kind of were more prominently or predominantly using teleworking and stuff like that. Honestly, that's just not something that we thought of, right? We should have, honestly, we should have, but there was no pressing need or overwhelming need to do the shift. And then with that, kind of going hand in hand with that is the coping with the effects of prolonged screen time. I'm a millennial, guys. I'm on my phone. I'm out in front of a screen all day. But there's something different about it if you're doing work all day, right? And I think that's definitely something that us as a world and as a culture and as a people really had to adjust to. Me included, I tried those blue glasses. It didn't really work out for me. But yeah, it was a shift in not only how to approach work, but also how to approach um, just day-to-day life for us. And really, it boils down to adaptability, right? So we came up with this acronym here called PIVOT, which is pivoting interaction with veterans, outreach, and telehealth. So we're a grantee with the VA. With that reality, the VA is very, very strict on paperwork. They have a lot of mandates that we have to follow, um, and kind of finding that middle ground of how to work, um, but also fulfilling what our grantee or what our grantor is telling us. Took a lot of work. So like Sonia is saying, we had to put trust in the vets. We had to work with self-declarations. We had to help people who didn't have um, online banking. I walked a couple of guys through setting up their FHB and their Bank of Guam accounts. Um, and really, I think an unintended kind of benefit of this is we were able to teach people new skills that would translate uh, in a pandemic or out of a pandemic. With the outreach, uh, and outreach is a requirement of our program as well. So we had to be really creative with how we were proactive with seeing new people. We couldn't we couldn't expect we couldn't rely on events and stuff because of the pandemic. So we put ourselves out there. Um, we we were on the former I-94 a couple of times during the morning, just putting our name out there, and that kind of resulted in an influx of vets, and that's exactly what we wanted, right? So in times where people needed our help, we were there, and we were able to use kind of this pandemic and the negatives of the pandemic, but then kind of oriented so it kind of made it so we were able to reach more people.
So when we started teleworking, one of the things that was very important in adapting was communication, and it was communication at all levels, right? With the team, with clients, with partners. And so I remember before COVID, right? So I always refer to it as pre-COVID, when my cell phone was used mostly for WhatsApp communication. You know, barely did it ring, but today I can't find a way to detach from it. Today, we spend hours upon hours, like Brandon said, of our day on our phones, from conducting services from pre screening, screenings, plan updates, and even program exits. The use of the cell phones became the primary tool of communication with the team, clients, and partners. As we all can attest, communication at any level, in any form, is vital to ensure safety, support, and progress. Communication amongst our SSVF team was taken to a new level. We relied on the use of technology more than ever because COVID stripped us of the ability to communicate in person. Instant notification if a client or partner showed up at the office. The veteran advocate was immediately called to see if any messages needed to be relayed as our vets walked in our office. Sometimes just to hear a fellow team member's voice was nice. Conducting peer consultations with the team was via cell phone as opposed to in-person discussions. Communication technology also improved quickly as our organization provided the ability to meet virtually, which also reminds me that in order to communicate, everyone required portable computer systems, surfaces, laptops, or tablets. We were bougie now. So, communicating with clients brought on challenges for some, but others appreciated the change. Some of our heroes have their beliefs when it comes to technology. They hear the horror stories of personal information being stolen from the internet, identity theft, and government conspiracy. It was our duty to ease the anxiety by explaining the safety protocols in place that would help protect their data. I mean, who willingly gives their information? We're talking about birth certificates, social security numbers, copies of their DD 214s. I know personally I would be hesitant to provide that information without checking if, in fact, that individual works for the agency or organization. As a team, we did our best when talking with our clients by providing the name and contact number of the person or persons that would be calling, providing a transition so they aren't surprised. Our program also allotted additional supports by allowing for the purchase of cell phones and minutes to those who had no means of communication to ensure that they didn't fall through the gap. And of course, our staff continued to keep our office doors open for those that had no other way of accessing our services. SSVF has always had great communication with our partners, but the pandemic enhanced it. The ability to rely on each other for contact or communication with those we serve was imperative. Sharing information on updates on a whim to ensure veterans were safe, sheltered, and provided the bare necessities. We worked as a team to inform those who may benefit from services about each other's programs. We learned to rely on each other for support when we felt that we couldn't progress, reassuring each other that we had done all we can. As partners, we shared in the joy of helping our heroes and their families obtain or maintain housing. As partners, we also shared in the frustration that the pandemic had caused when families were living in separate rooms because our vendors did not have the capacity to shelter the family in one room. As partners, we also shared in the loss of some of our homeless heroes to death.
Kind of jumping off the thing I mentioned about outreach and how we put our name out there. The question of, are advertisements good or not so good? Well, obviously they're good. We were able to make more people aware of the services. Um, we were in the JIC text messages. We had advertisements put out. We had the budget for it finally, and we were able to reach people that we probably, and not even probably, because I heard it straight from the vets, that they only heard of us because of the media interviews we did, or the JIC text message, or the text campaign we did, or the Instagram post we put out there, right? So we were able to cast a really wide net to, I would say, a multi-generational kind of batch of vets that we wouldn't have reached otherwise. The not so good part comes from our end. We love what we do. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. But man, when we put those advertisements out, uh, I don't know if people got excited when they saw the offer for free rental assistance and free utility payments, but I know from my experience, I had a day where I had 74 phone calls come in, and I want to say maybe 6 of those were vets. So
But remember, Brandon, that didn't stop us because we knew our resources in the community. We were able to provide that information even to those that weren't veterans, right? And so,
definitely, and thank you for feeding into the next point, right? So we need to be knowledgeable of the community because we all know that more than ever, people needed help. Veteran or not, we took the phone call, we took whatever concern or issue they had, and if we couldn't help them directly, we are either well connected with another agency who could, or we knew how to get someone who, or get them to someone who could, right? And that definitely, I would say, again, the twofold benefit of this is it forced us as workers and to develop new connections and to rely more closely on partners, right? And I would say that out of that 74 phone calls, at least 73 of them were taken care of, maybe 74, but at least 73 were taken care of. And we definitely need, if anything, it stressed gaps in our own knowledge and also gaps in the community as a whole. There are some programs that people ask for where we just straight up said, "Well, we don't know of a program out there." We referred them out there to the other programs and they don't know of it either. So I think this was a wake-up call to us as workers, and then us as people of Guam, knowing to know what our people need and what we have to either help them or what we're missing. Um, yeah, it's so advertisements are great. Receiving 74 phone calls is great. That night, that sleep was even greater. So yeah.
And then leading into collaboration, right? So having making that collaborating with our resources in the community, right? And I know it's very cliche, teamwork makes the dream work, but it does, you know. um I know I touched on the topic a couple slides ago when we were talking about greater reliance on each other and relationships with existing partners growing stronger. But I that's, communication, that's the key to collaboration, right? What is collaboration? Collaboration is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. But in order to collaborate, we must first learn to communicate. We must discuss what is in the best interest of our veteran, what is realistic, what do they want, working with our partners and our veterans to create a plan of action that will shelter them in a safe environment and provide them with the basic needs to maintain housing and sustain themselves. As existing partnerships grew stronger, we also developed new partnerships that help meet the basic needs of those we serve. The abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables donated to our heroes and their families, additional nourishment provided by our government, landlords and realtors willing to take a risk during this moratorium to help a veteran and their family find a place they could call home. Emergency housing vendors willing to take in our homeless heroes. I want to share a little bit more about our emergency housing vendors. They had a crash course on being a social worker. Um, they became our front line in working with our clients. They got the brunt of any and all frustration that our veterans were going through regarding lockdown and hotel policies, helping them understand all those things. They would call or email about an incident, but it never failed that the situation was de escalated and the team was informed as a courtesy. They also celebrated our veterans by providing baskets of goodies from time to time, all while ensuring they remain safe and sheltered from the pandemic. And there was a lot, and maybe Brandon can help me speak on it, but there were several situations, and sometimes there's nothing else that the hotel can do, right? Where it's just reached that point that it's putting the safety of their staff and the other guests in harm's way. But they definitely tried their best to keep them in the hotels. And even when they couldn't, for whatever reason, they felt bad. And, it just goes to show how our community cares, right? And how everyone wants to help and support each other. And in this situation, they wanted to help and support our veterans and their families. So I don't know if you want
Absolutely.
to add on a story.
Okay. Um, Probably no specific stories because it would be too long. But as a general thing, right? Um, Man, you guys have no idea how above and beyond all our vendors went, right? Um, emergency housing in particular, I would remember like nights where I would get text messages from hotel managers to saying, "Hey, we realized that the vets weren't getting like snacks in the meals we were providing, so we got them some snacks," or "Hey, we bought them pizza." And my first mind is, dang, we're not allowed to pay for that additional cost, right? Because it's supposed to be an invoice. But no, they got it out of their pocket at their cost, right? And it was really for no purpose other than to take care of our guys and our girls and our vets. And to me, that really kind of reinvigorated me towards the job. We're all exhausted. We're working, and I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this. We're working way past where we should be working. That's the reality of it. But if a hotel vendor whose only job is to provide us the place where the vet can put their head down at night can go above and beyond, why can't we? And that's very cliche, but it was so real to me. Um, when Sonia talks about landlords being willing to take the risk of opening their doors, oh man, getting a little emotional here because getting landlords to work with our program, even in the old normal pre-COVID times, was hard. It was hard to convince people, and that's really what it is: convincing people to take a chance on a vet. Um, but people showed who they really were during the pandemic. They showed um, that anaphemalic spirit is still very much alive today, right? Um, and then shout out to Guahan Sustainable Culture, because that is something, I don't know if I'm only speaking for myself, Sonia, but I never thought about buying our vets fresh fruit and vegetables. But
Right?
there were no complaints, and everyone's like, "Oh, I never tried this bill and beanness before. It's been a long time since I had fresh green beans." And I think
I
I
had I
think
had a vet. One of mine was I had a vet that sent me a photo of one of the fruits that came in the bag, and they couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. And we're like, I don't know. One day, hopefully, we'll know what it is. But that's how excited they were. They would share photos of what they received. Even at the hotel, remember they had sent us a picture of the, they're just so grateful, right, for the little things that's being gifted to them. And that's that's what keeps us motivated. That's what keeps us going. That's our fuel for our for the work that we do.
definitely. And also like an unintended consequence, or not consequence, benefit of that is that a lot of these guys have dietary issues and they probably could eat healthier, right? So we are able to give them not only healthy food, but locally grown healthy food. And I think that was really cool to me. Um, yeah. And DOE always coming through with those commodity bags. So that definitely doesn't go unnoticed. Yeah. There you go. So stasis, right? So this is overall kind of reminding ourselves to maintain a level of sanity and balance in our life, right? So full disclosure, I have no BSW. I have some social work education, but I never understood what self-care was. I was like, why do you guys, I went to a bunch of social work conferences. I made obviously connections with other social workers. I never understood why there was a need to stress self-care. Well, I learned real fast. I always was, I feel like I was always pretty good at compartmentalizing kind of work and home, right? But the last year has really taught me the importance of self-care. So it's going back to coping with the screen time. One of the ways I do that is honestly, you you will not reach me on my phone during the weekends because I spend all 5 days of the week looking at my phone. Knowing that we don't have to be glued to our computers. I don't know about you guys, but when I when we first started doing this telehealth, I thought, oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I'm not in front of my computer the full 8 hours. Even going to the restroom, I was kind of worried that I don't know if they could track me somehow. So I think that was definitely an adjustment. And actually, our management had to tell us in one of our first full staff meetings post COVID or during COVID that, hey, we're not expecting you to be at your computer all day. We understand that life happens. So, yeah, I could finally play with my dogs, or if my dogs start barking, I could pet them, and I didn't feel guilty about it. And then the underlying thing of us being people in a pandemic as well. It was really, it was a lot, because a lot of the vets that we were helping came to us for answers. Say, oh, how does COVID work? How do I not get it? What happens if I do get it? And we only know what everybody else knows, what's coming out on the news, and that's a lot for those who don't have access to it. But it was a lot to kind of be expected to be a source of comfort. And I think we more or less definitely stepped up to the plate to provide that at least some level of comfort. But we'd be lying if we didn't say that we weren't concerned about the virus ourselves. So it took us to maintain kind of that reassuring voice, but while also maintaining that we didn't have the answers, and then also worrying about our families who were at risk of the same thing that everybody else was. And then finally, boundaries. And this kind of goes back to the self-care, but again, I've never had to work from home before. So I have a bedroom that I treat as my office, treat as the place I sleep, treat as the place that I watch TV in. And for about 2 weeks, it was the place I worked in too. Um, yeah, that was really bad because I remember I remember staying in one spot from 8:30 to 5:30, and probably it was closer to 6:30. And then once I was done with the work, closing the laptop and then saying, oh, I'm in the same room. Uh, if I'm gonna watch TV, I'm really taking like 3 or 4 steps to the right. And the only difference is my computer will be closed. So one of the biggest things that really helped me survive, because I felt like a person of work, honestly. I felt like I could never escape work, was dedicating my kitchen to my workspace and being my office. And the negative of that is I hate cooking now. Um, the positive of that is I was in a place that wasn't my private area. I was in a place where I could see the sun, I could hear the wind, I could hear other people, and that has really been one of the kind of pro tips that I try to tell people who say that it's tough to work at home. And with that, right, when's it not okay to answer the phone? Someone tell me the answer because I'm still wondering that. No, but I think more than anything, right, knowing when to detach. Definitely, I get those calls at 11:30 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I know that there are times where I can't help but answer it, and that's just always going to be me, right? But I think there was kind of a reassurance that even if you don't have to, right? Having the option to, and knowing that I didn't have to answer it. If I wanted to, that's fine, but I don't have to, was such a liberating thought to me. And I don't know if I'm just kind of too bleeding heart or too naive to think otherwise, but yeah, it definitely took a lot of adjustment, I would say. Sonia, do you have any kind of stories or anecdotes to talk about your experience? Because I know you and I were a little
I was
weird.
just gonna, I was, I was just gonna share. I remember when we first started working from home, the same thing. 8:30, I better be sitting at the dining room table or the kitchen table, have my laptop open. I better be sitting here ready to clock in. And then I said, Leche, I don't even do that when I'm in the office. I come in, I clock in, we share stories, we make coffee, you know, and, we just prepare ourselves for the rest of the day. Kind of like that transition, right? From going from being, being at home to getting into the workspace, right? And so I had to do that here as well at home. And so but I also had to keep in mind that if I'm at the kitchen table, then that affects the rest of my family. They can't come out, they can't eat when they want to. I have to And so making sure that when I take care of my work, I'm also making sure that I'm respectful to my family and their space, right? And so making sure that if they're ready to eat, I can take my stuff, I can go charge my laptop, I still have my phone, and there's nothing that would be it wouldn't be so bad if I closed off my computer for a few minutes so that they could have the kitchen to eat in peace, right? And so just making setting those type of boundaries as well, right? But it's funny because they also know that this is my area. This is where mom sets her computer up, and this is where she's working. And I take up half the table with all my stuff, and it's not from snacks. It's from my notebook to my Surface to my the phones, the paperwork, and it's just that's just how it works. And I'm grateful that my family's very understanding too, right? Because I'm here, but I'm not here in that sense. And just and I know that everyone goes through that as well. Working from home is it's about setting boundaries, and then also making sure that we're respectful of each other and in throughout the day. So I saw this quote. It was actually sent to our um, so they're doing these they're sending out information for Women's Month on all these fabulous women, and I found this very I guess it relates very well to the work that we as social workers do, and it relates to the work that we do. It says, you cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement and at the same time share a general responsibility for all humanity. Our particular duty being to aid those to whom we think we can be most useful. And I think this is what we do every day. And this is from Marie Curie. And so um, I just wanted to leave that thought, right? Because it kind of goes with the theme of everything that's been going on in the conference the past few keynote speakers that we just had today. And so I just wanted to share this. It was it it spoke to me, I guess is how I could say it.
Just kind of last couple slides just kind of gives our contact information. All all the SSVF team is listed there. Um, yeah, that's us.
Well, not all the team. We have
Oh,
our we have our other
the case
we have our
managers
other
are there.
team
I'm sorry.
members. Yes.
I'm in trouble now. But
Our behind the scenes important personnel as well.
more important than us, honestly. But
Yes.
but if we can go, and then finally we launched our website very recently. So if there's anybody who needs it, more information on not just what we do, but what all the programs in West Care Pacific Islands does, westcarepacificislands.org. It has everything from eligibility for our programs and other programs to how to contact us to sharing what we've done and what we do. So definitely check that out.
I believe it also has opportunities for employment that are
We're
that's there.
hiring. We're
Yes.
hiring. So
Actually, our
join the
program is
team.
looking our program is looking for a quality assurance coordinator at 30 hours per week, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I believe it's actually full time.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, somebody fact check
Well,
and let us
anyway,
know which one is wrong. But yeah,
so
that's us.
I guess we're open if anyone has any questions or comments. If anyone's
Concerns.
still there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, this is Julian. Sorry. Um, I just wanted to ask, how did you um, uh, locate or recruit your emergency home vendors?
So hi Julian, thanks for the question. First of all, I always wanted to say that, but I think what it was is that we literally spent time canvassing all hotels because we had a lot of, and it started with one guy the day after the shutdown, where we had to place him in a hotel, but our normal vendor straight up said, "Oh, we're not accepting people unless they've been tested and have a negative test." So I was like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" So that forced us to kind of get on the phone and start real fast looking for hotels that were accepting guests and were willing again to take a chance on our guys. Luckily, at least for that day, there was one that we had used in the past that we weren't using as much, and that was just because we have to normally go to the least expensive option. But they were willing to take in our guy, no questions asked. They were willing to do that, and then from there we spent the next couple of days because we were anticipating that there was going to be a flood of guys coming in who would need um, emergency housing. So we literally called every hotel, and there was only one. So I think it's okay if we say the vendors, yes, on it, or do you think that's a so? So we used Sure Stay Hotel, and we called every other hotel on the island, and they literally turned us all down. And they were the only other one that was willing to work with us was Grand Plaza Hotel. So we were able to give our guys a choice between two different locations, which was good because some guys need to be closer to like VA services, so that would be more ideal for Sure Stay, and some guys want it to be close to the beach and closer to like the hub, right? And we put them in Tumon at Grand Plaza. Um, yeah, we definitely would have had more options if more people were willing to work with us, but thankfully those two hotels have been very accommodating to us, and to this day we're still relying on them very heavily to house our vets. So
And I think a lot of it also had to do with whether the hotels were able to afford the equipment necessary to sterilize and clean their hotel rooms with the guests, right? Because they're not requiring um, the test. They're not requiring, it was they were taking our vets in, and I think that also had a lot to do with some of the setback of some of our normal vendors or our usual vendors. Oh, one of our other usual vendors.
Thank you.
thank you.
I had a
Thank
question.
you. Yes.
Uh, for your clients, do you guys also connect them to their families or relatives?
Oh man, there's actually a cool story about that. Just recently, so one of the things that a newer type of assistance our grantor has allowed us to do is something called returning home. So through this, if a veteran kind of for lack of a better word, kind of like exhaust all the resources, but they're still not stably housed. They're not able to maintain their housing. We're actually able to fly them to another place that has a SSVF where they're at. So this particular vet was just flown out 2 weeks ago, reunited with his mom in Indiana. And yeah, we do, and I think the cool thing is we don't just kind of fly them out and that's it. We also maintain the case management. We make sure that the transition's as smooth as possible, and we make sure that that connection kind of is not only built but also is strong before we kind of let go, right? In addition to that, one of the things that we always kind of stress is looking at other resources, right? So family is one of those things where a lot of our vets, honestly, they probably have come to us because they've already burnt that bridge. But uh, we were all trained to kind of mediate and just kind of be there to while they have that discussion about a possible temporary housing or even a permanent housing. And those are kind of the cases I'm most proud of is people kind of reconnecting with people they didn't think they could rely on anymore. And all it took was kind of a conversation happening that wouldn't have happened otherwise, right? Or would have taken longer to happen otherwise. So yeah, definitely. Sorry, Sonia, I just jumped on that question because I got excited. But if you want to say anything
It's
now,
okay. It's okay. I think you covered most of it, and yes, that was a very touching return to home story. Uh, you know, a lot of our vets deal with behavioral health issues, um, and aside from that, physical ailments that prevent them from being able to find employment. Um, and like the big discussion is the social security for disabilities is not available on Guam, and so that's something that they wouldn't qualify for. So basically, their only source of income would be the TANF, which is what $48 per month um, for a single household, aside from the SNAP, right? That's given to them, which is what, about 261. I'm sorry, I I think that's the amount, but you know, can you imagine trying to um, you know, just putting ourselves in that position of trying to pay for rent and utilities and basic needs with $48 a month? That's just unfeasible, you know. Um, and so being able to return them home into a support system, into a, a, a location that can provide these resources that would benefit them is like, it's very rewarding, right? It's knowing that we're able to assist them in getting those services that they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's glad to know
Thank you.
we have these programs to support individuals in our community.
I have a
Definitely.
question for
I,
Mr. Cobb or Byron. Uh, we're talking about the population of homeless veterans. Are we talking about the population pre-COVID or during the COVID? And how has the COVID raised those numbers?
we're talking about both. I would say COVID definitely raised those numbers. Both because we help, like Sonia mentioned in the beginning, we help both literally homeless, so the ones you see like on the streets, and those who are also at risk of homelessness. So those who were gonna lose their housing because they lost employment or not able to maintain their housing because of loss of income or anything like that, or God forbid, somebody passing away in the household who was like the breadwinner. Um, so really, we've seen every kind of manifestation of how somebody can become homeless because of kind of the ripple effects of COVID, I would say.
Okay, now what would West Care's plan be for if and when they ever give the so-called all clear for the COVID? Uh, what would that do to the veterans and their families that are using your service, West Care services? And how would the funding go for those services? Would they just disappear, or is there an actual plan for that post COVID? You could.
So I was going to say, so we've been very fortunate to be a recipient of CARES funds, and that has helped us help our veterans sustain the housing that they're in at this point. So it's extended their what was what used to be pre-COVID limited allotments. We're now able to extend it to some degree. Um, so instead of getting a 6 to 9 month worth of rental assistance, we're able to, if they're still lacking the income to continue paying for their rent, then we would be able to assist them further. At the same time, we also, and you know, like we talked about during our presentation, linkages to our partners is very important. So we work very closely with HUD-VASH, and so not all veterans are eligible for HUD-VASH, but um, they are a they are a very important part of helping sustain housing for our vets that we assist.
So you can say that your network or stakeholders is pretty intense there for West Care as far as you know the amount and the size of help you guys receive.
I would say definitely. I would say it's pretty strong. There's always room to grow. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some gaps, right? But I think between the team, right, we're very well connected with resources that would help somebody get into a very sustainable situation. The way I kind of tell the vets that I work with is really what we do is this 9 months buys us time where they don't have to worry about being housed, or 9 or 6 months, however long we can provide the assistance, buys us time where we can make sure that those connections are made, right? So whether it be them getting a VA rating or them getting employment, um, I want to say my batting average and Sonia's batting average and all our batting averages are pretty high in getting somebody settled within those 6 to 9 months, right? So um, is our connections good? I would say so. Can it get better? Definitely. Are we trying to get better? Definitely.
Just for your information, Mr. Cobb, inside joke between me and Miss Tyron with her slide, teamwork makes the dream work. I said, huh? I cannot even get on the team. How's that?
Hey, we're hiring, man. We're hiring.
Start with
Join
the
the team.
QA application. Get your foot in the door, you know.
Thank you for
Thank you for
answering.
calling me Mr. Cobb, by the way. I never felt so important.
Do you have any more questions from the participants?
You know, I just wanted to share that Brandon and I purposely made our presentation a little bit shorter than it should be because we wanted to allow you guys the opportunity to get some self-care in for the day. And if there aren't any more questions, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Even you, our moderator, you can go and do some self-care. You've been
Just
working
stay
hard
logged
today.
in. Just stay logged in, but you don't have to be at your desk.
All
Thank
right.
you guys for the time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you guys for your
I hope.
presentation.
Thank you. We didn't get your name, Mr. Moderator.
My name is Daniel. Nice to meet
All
you.
right, then.
Thank you, Daniel.
And
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
before
thank you all for
everyone
joining
goes,
us.
I want to thank you for joining us for day one of 2021 Social Work Regional Training Conference. As a reminder, the conference will resume tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. To access the conference, you can use the same Zoom link. Again, you can use the same Zoom link for tomorrow's conference. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.